Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you feel we never wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal rolling, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party? You got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal rolling, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal rolling, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal rolling, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Won't somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy? Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal rolling, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal rolling, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal rolling, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Very, very good evening. Sunday, the 13th of April 2025. My name is Raja Mia, and this is a Recusant 9 transmission. Indeed, Garrett, Maggie Oliver is on GMB tomorrow, and I will get onto that. It's been an eventful week for me. Highs, lows, in between. We'll get to all of that. We'll make sense of all of that. But what I start with, as always, please, is if you find value in my work, then please consider, at the very least, liking and subscribing to this YouTube channel. It's the figures are abysmally low, and it costs you nothing to subscribe, particularly as you all here every week anyway. So please, if you can, subscribe to the channel. And if you're able to subscribe to Redwall and the Rabble, it's how I earn my money and manage to do the work I do. So that's Redwall and the Rabble. And if you can't do that, there is, of course, one of Buy Me a Coffee or a PayPal link you can use. And I'll refer to that as the evening goes on. We have a fully packed broadcast this evening. There's so much to get through. My hope is that I can get through it. I doubt I'll get through it in an hour, but I'll try my best, and it will continue if we need to do so, and if you want me to do so. I struggle with short form content. Those of you who follow my work will know I struggle with short form content, because this is not straightforward. The issues we're talking about, the work we're doing is not straightforward. It has not been straightforward, and it's taking its toll, and it continues to take its toll on me. And sometimes when I'm pausing to think what to say, how to say it, and communicate stuff with you in a way where it makes sense to you as well. So those of you of the TikTok generation, my sincere apologies. It's just not me. I can't do it in that way. Thank you so much for the PayPal, Jane, and thank you, Aidan. Also, thank you, Tony Martin, for my super chat as well earlier. Where do we start? Well, there's only one place to start for me this week. And this is my dear friend, Warren Bates. It's now just over a year since his passing. Without Warren, none of this would have been possible. Warren persevered and persevered long before I came along, and wouldn't let any of this die down. He was a UKIP councillor at one point, and he was banned and suspended from attending council meetings. Towards the end of his life, he was banned from attending a council meeting as a member of the public because the council fabricated an allegation of harassment and assault, I think, against a journalist who now works for Fact Check UK, or one of the fact-checking organisations, Charlotte Green. And all Charlotte Green had to do to clear Warren's name was just acknowledge that she'd not been assaulted or harassed by him. And there was 15 or 20 of us there at that meeting that evening. It was when Andy Burnham came to town, and Warren had done nothing but exchange pleasantries with her. So April for me is if I look sad this week. First of all, it's to do with Warren's passing. None of you, and I mean this with the greatest of respect, none of us have sacrificed as much as this man did. And in the end, when he died, and I sat at his deathbed, it was in the lead up to the elections, the all-out elections, and we removed Labour from power. We reduced them to 27 from 47, and we exposed all of this, and without Warren, none of this would have been exposed. So that's the first thing I'd like to say, is my love, really, and my ever gratitude to Warren's family. The next thing I need to raise with you is we have also lost another one of our family this week. My dearest friend, who regularly, has been a feature on the transmissions. In the main, also because I owe her so much. The first job I got was as what they called back in the days a community development worker. I actually worked for Oldham Council, and I was hired out of a porter cabin in Chadderton, Turf Lane in Chadderton. And the woman who hired me is called Lee Cook, and you see her sometimes on here. And Eileen Walker, I think some of you are friends with her on Facebook. I have been friends with her on Facebook. She's been fighting cancer valiantly for a decade or so, and she passed on Friday morning. And she meant everything to me. So if I come across, if I'm looking a bit down, it's because of that. And to give you an insight into the strength of this woman, heavy on chemotherapy, all of the medicines. She came out just before the general election and was a handful of people who campaigned for me, knocked on doors, put leaflets through letterboxes. So that is why. But I know, her family's not announced anything yet, but you know, she belongs to our community and we belong to each other, so I needed to share that information with you, and I'm sure her family, you'll all give them the privacy and the space that they need at this time. So I needed to share that information with all of you. First, my thoughts were really to cancel this evening, but I don't think either Warren would have ranted and Lee would have just stared at me. So here I am. So please bear with me if I pause at moments in this evening. Some interesting news this week. I live in Tameside, and there was a local by-election, and Longdondale is a safe Labour ward, or was a safe Labour ward, and this lad from Reform smashed it, absolutely smashed it. So those of you who are, we never voted Reform for this or that or something else, you need to understand, and I say this, where I'm not on the same page as Reforming, particularly in Oldham, because of a whole host of issues. But it's what I've said to all of you from the outset when this wave came, and someone who stood as an independent, it's easy for people to say, oh, you should stand as an independent, or you should set up a new party. We've set up parties, we've stood as independents, we've done all of that. we're not going to win like that. We will win. The only show in town really is reform. And what reform is also doing, apart from winning council seats in Labour strongholds, decimating the opposition. They got nearly half the votes. They nearly got all the votes. All the other parties combined would barely have touched them. And you can say that. Owen, I couldn't care less. You can say that. But what I'll say to you is, who are you going to vote for? And my view and my opinion has been, and I know a few of you contacted me this week, extremely disappointed because you'd gone to the reform meeting in Oldham and you'd been exploited, perhaps is the right word, or misled or taken for fools by the interim chairman there who wouldn't answer your questions. And then afterwards, some of you phoned me and said, I asked for the branch rules. I asked when the AGM was and how could I vote on the AGM as a fully paid up reform member. How could I perhaps stand in the position? You're the interim chair and your friends have all been appointed as in interim positions to get the branch up and running by headquarters, but that doesn't give you a right to these positions. How, if I wanted to stand, how would I be able to stand? Not only were they fobbed off, it seems that afterwards they were blocked from the Reform Facebook page for daring attend a meeting of a Democratic Party and asking how they can take part. So, despite that, I say to all of you, go and join a political party. And the only two I look at is the Conservatives, but they carry so much baggage because of what they did for 14 years. And Reform, who are also on their own journey. Now, I don't know who else there is. If you want to remove the Labour Party from control of not just your towns and cities, but this country, I don't know who else there is. They're not going to start a party, mate. And I'll tell you why. Because it's just not going to get them anywhere. Neither Rupert Lowe nor Ben Habib are stupid. And let's just pause for a second and analyse this. Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib's issue is not with reform. It's with the leadership and the structure of reform. It's not with the supporter base of reform. It's not with the policies of reform. It's with people. And this is an argument between three very powerful men, three very powerful individuals. And I have maintained from the outset, I hope for the good of the country that they address their differences. So my request of all of you who've contacted me from Oldham or Thameside or anywhere else is go and join and force the change. If these people are stopping you from having a vote, then raise it. Have the courage to say this is wrong. I can't fight your fights for you on this. If you want to see change in your towns and cities and reform is the party you're looking at and its structures aren't strong enough for you, or the people in charge are taking you for fools, then don't come crying to me because there's nothing I can do. You've got to have the courage to say this is wrong and speak out and challenge Paul Eric or challenge someone else. Get in touch with the headquarters and say all of this is wrong. So that's my point on this, and that's it. Go and join. Go and join a political party. And if you don't want to join Reform, go and join the Conservatives and get them to be the change. Because Labour ain't going to change, and the Lib Dems are going to get worse. So that's who we have as our options. But I'm pleased. I'm genuinely pleased. They've got a councillor in Tameside via a by-election. Because whatever you think of reform, there are county elections that have been cancelled in May that shouldn't have been cancelled. And reform would have won seats across the country. Thanks for the super chat, Chris. I'll get to that. I'll make sense of that. I've pulled something together for that. And I look at this, statements like this. And I'm all right, challenging, exchanging views here. The moment reform gets in, Farage will hand power over to you-know-who, and then Sharia is in. Well, if you think Sharia is going to be in if reform gets in, what do you think is going to be in with Labour continuing to stay in power? Well, Tracy, if Paul Eric is threatening lawyers, he has no right to do that as the interim chair of reform. Publish the letters. If he's really doing that, publish the stuff. Or send it me and I'll publish it. If you've not got the platform, send it me and I'll publish it. I think it's only right that a new party who sets up a branches across the country from a standing start, need some stability. I think that's only right. And they appoint interim people. But they've still got to operate to rules and regulations and grow the member base and have free and fair elections for both the actual positions in the branch and also positions in, in candidates and stuff. That's how democratic parties work. And that's your opinion. So you will have to choose who you vote for. This is my viewpoint as well. Right. That's my viewpoint as well. Remember, I'm not a reform member, but that's my viewpoint on the situation. And as a former Labour Party member, I agree with that opinion as well. So, as reform out of the way, it's doing well. I don't know why my phone is ringing. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, that was my daughter. Sorry. She's Easter holidays, isn't it? This is normally well past her bedtime, but she's still up. I wanted to start with this, I think, only because Gary mentioned it. So give me 1 second, Gary. I don't know why he always does this. I set the page up and it resets itself. So this is Maggie Oliver. London bound again for a busy day of interviews tomorrow, starting with great Good Morning Britain at 8:15. I think that's what Gary Tarbuck posted earlier. It's going to be a big day, sharing important news. Please listen in. I'll be updating everyone as the news unfolds. And that's a picture of Maggie, who, she takes care in her appearance, doesn't she? I think that's fair to say, and good on her. I have. So we're clear. I have nothing but admiration for the lady. Aye. And then I look at some of the comments, and I think it's interesting. I think there's a scene setting, and I want to talk to you about that. Hope you're on GB News, Maggie, so that's not GMB, but GB News. Be great to hear what you have to say about the latest disastrous saga of this traitorous government, and in particular the supposed women and girls safeguarding minister, the Muslim pedo appeaser, also known as Jess Phillips. Now, I'm surprised, actually. Maggie replied to that, even though I'm not saying I disagree with the description. I'm just surprised Maggie responded to that. Hope you're on GB News, Maggie. And then goes on, to say the Muslim pedo appeaser, also known as Jess Phillips. So Maggie responded to that with 9 p.m. tomorrow night. So she's on at 8 a.m. at Good Morning Britain, 8:15, and at 9 p.m. in the evening she's on GB News. And then for MPs, some left-wing bloke, you'll be taking centre stage at Rupert Lowe's sham CSE inquiry. Talk about jumping on the bandwagon. And Maggie responds to that as well and says, wrong. I have been asked by Rupert Lowe to sit on his inquiry group panel, whatever you want to call it, and aid and support them. I am a working class man. I grew up in a very, very poor working class community. I grew up in the sort of place where, and I'm not joking with you, I remember going to bed drinking water. Because there wasn't enough food in the house. So, and being very cold, going to bed with your clothes on. So, what that taught me, one of the things it taught me, is that I do not have the luxury of choice. I make do with what I can get hold of and make the best of what I can that's put in front of me. And it is why I love him. So I mean, come on, how cheap am I if you took me out on a night out to drink? So I don't have the luxury of choice, and we don't have the luxury of choice, because we've been fighting this for so long. It's why I said to you about reform. We've been fighting this for so long. We don't have the luxury of choice. Some of these choices aren't the most ideal choices. They're not the best choices. I do not believe Rupert Lowe would have done what he has done if the government had gone forward with a statutory inquiry, or if he believed that this government, of its own volition, would launch a statutory inquiry. And in the absence of that, what do we do? In the absence of that, what do we do? Tell me, what do we do? And I don't criticise Maggie Oliver. She does amazing work for the victims and the survivors. But Maggie Oliver is not a political campaigner. I am a political campaigner. The reason why this chaos has ensued is not because Maggie Oliver went on Loose Women or somewhere else and shared details of the work that the foundation does or what happened to these girls. The reason why we are where we are is because people like me took the fight to the politicians. We shamed them, we beat them at the ballot box, we exposed them, and no matter how many times they arrested us, we continued. That is the truth of why we've got here. So I do not believe, and I think it's deeply wrong, to make reference to Rupert Lowe's inquiry as a sham. And engaging with anyone who does so in that way. And I'm not taking sides, but I am a straight talking northern man, and right is right and wrong is wrong, and even if you are my mother and you did something wrong, then I would try and speak to you in a manner where you understood what took place. It's all that we have right now. The Conservatives brought an amendment that was defeated. An amendment, so you understand politics, seeks to change an existing law being passed. Many of the Labour Party MPs, some of you have sent me their own letters, so I know this, said, oh, we never voted against the grooming gang inquiry. We voted against an amendment that would have derailed a children's bill. The Conservatives are playing here as well, because the Conservatives have what's known as opposition days, where they can bring clean motions forward. They haven't. They've brought clean motions forward for other issues too so far. And they've already said that they're going to bring another amendment to the Crime and Disorder Bill. So the Crime and Disorder Bill amendment, the Labour Party lot who'll vote against this again, will say, oh no, we didn't vote against the grooming gang inquiry, we voted against an amendment to the Crime and Disorder Bill, Crime and Order Bill. So we know the Conservatives aren't going to get this over the line anytime soon. And of course, the shadow hangs over them that they knew for 14 years. We pleaded with them. Conservative councillors from my own town pleaded with them. So maybe over the fullness of time they will change and they will evolve and they will genuinely feel this. I genuinely believe people like Liz Truss, Robbie Moore, get this, want this dealt with. Katie Elam, who spoke so passionately, I genuinely believe they care. And maybe this Conservative Party will evolve over the fullness of time, and by the time of the next general election, it'll go into battle with one of its manifesto pledges, a public inquiry. Because believe me, I do not think we will get a public inquiry before the next general election. So, that's them parked on one side. Reform? First of all, he did. I heard him because I criticised it. Nigel Farage went on record and said they will fundraise and they'll launch a public inquiry of their own, and then afterwards someone must have whispered in his ear, he realised he doesn't have the power, and now he's talking about a judicial review. Now, I understand what a judicial review is. A judicial review cannot force a public inquiry. A judicial review can only review the legality of a decision made. And there's not necessarily a consequence after that determination has been achieved. That's what a judicial review is. Reform, to their credit, had it on their manifesto in the lead up to this most recent general election. Hopefully they'll go above and beyond come the next general election. So, right now, no amount of feeling sorry for the survivors will get us anywhere. No amount of therapeutic work, recording testimonies and sharing, none of that on its own will get us anywhere. And sometimes, Maggie, it's best not to try and discredit someone else's efforts. Because on something like this, there is no one way of getting to where we need to be. And all of us need to be working towards it in our own way. So, I don't think it's a sham inquiry. And I don't believe I've jumped on any bandwagon. And if you followed our work in Oldham, you will know that despite multiple challenges with Maggie Oliver's foundation, you will not get us to say a bad word about the foundation, because we're not all always right, we're not all always wrong. There are grey areas in this. I'm sorry, that's not a transmission for today. So if you want to talk about lawyers and Hamas, I'm more than happy to do it and go into extensive detail, but it's not for today. And that it might be, but the amendment has got nothing to do with that, has it? The reason, or one of the reasons we've managed to get as far as we have, is because of our ability to remain focused and to pick our fights. No. It's not as simple as that. Having an inquiry called a sham inquiry that people are still fundraising for. One of the leading advocates in this area shouldn't be criticising it. Okay, let's move on. So this is where it started, and we'll carry on. I've got a sequence of videos to show you. He says, here we go. Sorry, I just need to...
Television and radio presenter. But I think what the government is doing on that question is utterly shameful.
Really?
Utterly shameful. And it is so obviously political that if people who in government who are responsible for this, who are in other ways, I think completely decent people, should really be ashamed of themselves. And because it's so obvious that they're not doing this because the demographic of the people involved, as Katie Lamb, the Tory MP, said yesterday, largely Pakistani Muslim in background, and also in Labour-held seats and councils who would be offended by it. And that's clearly the reason that they're not pursuing this. And it is utterly shameful, given what has been done to these children by these men. I cannot tell you how cross I am about it. But it relates to the question you asked me, because I think part of the problem is that the centre-left has put all sorts of barriers around what it can talk about, what it may speak out about. And in the same way as we have this problem here in the United States, the Democrats have had almost nothing to say about, for example, immigration, had nothing very much to say about some of the barriers on freedom of speech on campuses and so on, because they're embarrassed by it, and it has presented an absolute open goal to people like Trump and Vance. That's the problem.
Okay, utterly shameful, repeated by Trevor Phillips as to why Yvette Cooper, Jess Phillips it was, the day before, sneaked out and said what she said. And here is Trevor Phillips, the former head of the Commission for Racial Equality, lest we forget, and also headed up the Equality and Human Rights Commission. I've worked with Trevor. I like Trevor. He is forthright. I have time for him. This is his article. It was published in the Telegraph. It's behind a paywall, sadly, but I pay for it. So here we go. I'll talk you through it. Labour dropped grooming gang inquiries to avoid offending Pakistanis. This is how far we've travelled on this. Labour dropped its plans for 5 local grooming gang inquiries for fear of offending its Pakistani voters, Sir Trevor Phillips has claimed. Sir Trevor, the former chair of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, said Labour's response to the grooming gang scandal was utterly shameful because it was so obviously political to avoid offending a particular demographic of voters. The broadcaster, who previously stood to be a Labour candidate for London Mayor, said the move risked providing an open goal to right-wing critics of the party's policies on immigration. His comments came after the government dropped a commitment to provide £5 million to support up to 5 initial inquiries modelled on the previous judge-led one onto grooming gangs in Telford. Jess Phillips, a Home Office minister, announced that following feedback, the government would adopt a flexible approach where the money would be available for local councillors to use as they wish to support grooming gang work. She said this could mean full independent local inquiries, but could also mean more bespoke work, including local victims panels or locally led audits of the handling of historical cases. The Conservatives accused Labour of watering down their response to the grooming gangs inquiry in an announcement just 45 minutes before Parliament broke for recess. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, said her party would push for another vote on setting up a national inquiry into the scandal. She posted on X, if Starmer refuses to initiate a national inquiry, the public will suspect a cover-up. How can the very councils that fail to stop the rape gangs be trusted to investigate their own failures? We'll push for another vote so Labour is compelled to do the right thing. Home Office sources said it was patently false that they had watered down its commitment and insisted that the change did not necessarily mean that 5 inquiries would not go ahead, but ministers had decided to not be prescriptive following the local consultation. So they're claiming and I'll just read Trevor Phillips' quote out, because it's so obvious that they're not doing this because of the demographic of the people involved. As Katie Lamb, the Tory MP, said yesterday, largely Pakistani Muslim in background, and also in Labour-held seats and councils who would be offended by it. So it's correlating the background of the demographics of the offenders and the Labour-held strongholds, Labour-held seats. So that is what Trevor Phillips has said. Now, for those of you who are interested in this sort of work, I'll try and do on this week. I promise to do on this week, Monday or Tuesday, if not tomorrow, Tuesday. I'll try for Tuesday. I might have to go to London for a Winston Marshall podcast, but if it's not sorted out, I'll try this for Tuesday. The government are saying that, first of all, they said 5 local inquiries. Yep, but their thinking has evolved. It's not changed. They've not backtracked. It's not watered down. Their thinking has evolved as a consequence of local consultation. We should, freedom of information, the Home Office, for them to release the report of that local consultation. So we would ask, which councils did you consult with? What did you ask them? Which ones responded? What did they say? Was there a report produced that went to Jess Phillips or Yvette Cooper? Can we have all of that? All of that is in the public interest. And that, I believe, will scupper them. So that is what I believe we should do. And I think for it to work, about 10 or 12 of us will need to put in similar freedom of information requests. So if you're up for that sort of work, let me know, and I'll run the workshop. In fact, put it up here. If you're interested, just put yes or something down whilst I drink a bit more Vimto, and we'll run that. We'll schedule that and we'll run it. Whilst I'm waiting for responses, of course, please, if you are finding value in this, and there's 1,000 of you here with me, if you're finding value in this transmission, please, please, please sign up to Red Wall and the Rabble, even if you sign up for free. We need numbers. We need numbers to put pressure on these people. And if you can afford to do so, commit the £3 a month or just £30 for the year. And it's how I keep going. It's how I keep my lights on, and it's how I do the work that I do. If you followed my appointment onto Rupert Lowe's inquiry team, you will have noticed that I have made it categorically clear from the outset, and Rupert's team have announced it on their press release, that I will take no payment from the inquiry team. And so we're clear. I have an understanding of this. This is 2 years worth of work. It will be. I believe it will be at least 2 years worth of work. And you, those who follow my work, know how diligently I work. So I'm committing 2 years worth of my time completely free at great personal risk. And all I ask in return for those of you from the wider community who take value from this work, which will continue, is to commit £3 a month or support me with £30 for the full year. So, all right, there's enough of you. Great. We'll run a Freedom of Information workshop. Afternoon or evening? Do you want to do it tomorrow evening? Let's do it tomorrow evening. Do I have a link to what? You can request from Cyprus. My funding page, I link it on absolutely everything. Sorry. That's why I was like, huh? I put it on absolutely everything. In fact, people, I have the random hater who sends me a message telling me I shouldn't put this up. And how dare I? But I put this up on absolutely everything I do. There you go. Thank you. It's the way you've not been on one of my workshops, Aid, Steve. I'm not sure which one it is. If you have, you'll understand there's a lot more to freedom of information workshops requests than originally meets the eye. Sometimes we want answers, sometimes we don't want answers, sometimes we want them to open up. There's a game. So I think so. I mean, how long do you think it'll take? I mean, he's not said that to me, but I'm just looking at that and I'm thinking, well, how long do you think it'll take? I don't know. If you think it'll take 3 months or 6 months, tell me. I'd be extremely surprised. Thank you. And then we all start somewhere, don't we? So let's continue.
Phillips yesterday, 45 minutes before Easter recess began, it must be said, saying that following feedback, there's now going to be this flexible approach. There's now going to be locally led work on grooming gangs. Are you really allowing councils to mark their own homework? Are you abandoning the victims?
No, absolutely not. And I can say to you, as someone who worked with some of the victims of grooming scandals before I came into Parliament, all the way back to young people, young girls particularly in Keighley, Rotherham, Rochdale, that we will not do that as a government. What we've done is listen both to victims and to local communities, whether it's the council or the police or other agencies, to give them the tools that they need to tackle this problem. It's no use us just trying to impose one solution from Whitehall. We know that there are repeated patterns over and over again about young girls not being believed because they're young, because they're female and because they're working class, and the warning signs and the warnings that when they raise their voices going unheard and unacted upon. We're absolutely determined to make sure that we give local areas the tools that they need to tackle the problems in their communities, and we will hold them to account for it. Of course we will, and the Minister, Jess Phillips, is absolutely determined to do so. But what we won't do is pretend that just announcing inquiries is the way to solve this problem. In some cases we need inquiries, in other cases we don't. We need other measures, and that's what we're working with communities to do.
We get this announcement from Jess Phillips.
In some cases we need inquiries, in other cases we need something else. Okay. If that is true, then in what cases do we need inquiries, and in what cases do we need something else? When is an inquiry not suitable? Nothing. Lisa Nandy is one of those careerist politicians I have a genuine dislike for. She hides behind the fact she's a woman. She hides behind, oh, when I used to do this work, I worked with the NSPCC, or I worked in these areas and that areas with children. No. Lisa Nandy has said bugger all for the last few years on young girls not being believed when they went to the police and they were gang raped. She's been a politician long enough. I don't remember her speaking out, do you? And of course, the young girls not being believed that she wants to focus on is just one element of what took place. Before the young girls are not believed, there is the perpetrator community, the Pakistani men that Trevor Phillips makes reference to, whose beliefs legitimized for themselves the horrific actions that they committed. including the man that Katie Lamb made reference to, who smashed a young girl over the head with a baseball bat and then inserted that baseball bat up her vagina. So before we talk about young girls not being believed, we need to look at the beliefs within the perpetrator community. None of these grooming gang interventions, the menu that the government has anything to do with that sort of research. I come from a field of counter-extremism. When the bombs blew up, long before the bombs blew up, I was advocating for the need to understand the belief systems in the communities from where the suicide bombers and the nutcases were coming from. Sadly, it took for some bombs to go off in the underground in London before the government scratched their heads and said, oh yeah, that lad was right, wasn't he? We need to work out why. Lisa Nandy also admits that when these young girls were not believed and the truth came out, there's something about frontline staff not believing. Well, then we now also know there were politicians who did believe and did know and then did cover up what took place. So do you see how they are already trying to narrow the parameters? This is not accidental, my friends. Lisa Nandy. Too often in this 6-year journey, I scratch my head and I look at complete bafflement. White women trying to protect or prevent investigations into the cover-up of the gang rape of white girls. Crazy. There's another interview with her. I'll play it.
To make sure that they have the...
Why has the government dropped plans for 5 local inquiries into grooming gangs?
We haven't. What we're doing is working with local areas to make sure that they have the tools that they need to be able to tackle this problem. If they need the tools to do proper inquiries, we'll make sure that they are available. We know, because this has been happening for a long time, and I think you know, Kate, that before I came into Parliament, I worked with the children who were affected in the very early days of these scandals, Rotherham, Rochdale, Doncaster, Keighley, and many, many others. We know that the most important thing is that local services have proper systems in place to understand what is happening in their areas and to be able to act very, very quickly to recognise the warning signs and to move fast. We know that there are repeated patterns in all of these cases. You have young girls, often working class young girls, who are not believed because they're female, because they're working class, because they're young. And what we are committed to doing is working with councils in every part of the country, including where there have been no suggestions of scandals, to make sure that they recognise the warning signs early and that they act quickly.
I think so you said that you haven't dropped those plans, but you have, because yesterday in the final hour of the Commons sitting, it was snuck out right before the Easter recess, Jess Phillips, Home Office Minister, announced that instead of that £5 million fund being set up specifically for those inquiries, councils can now use that money for pretty much whatever they want. They could, in this context, so they could look at doing some research on grooming, they could look at setting up a panel. It will not be 5 local inquiries, as was promised at the time. Is the truth that there was a lack of funding here, that councils have come back to you and said, look, we just can't do this for 5 million, and the government said, well, there's no more money? Is that the truth?
No, it's not the truth, and I don't think you can legitimately accuse Jess Phillips of sneaking anything out. You know, Jess Phillips is a good friend of mine, but more importantly, she's a good friend to victims of sexual abuse.
I know
and
she
violence
is, and it's why I'm interested that you've done this, because you did promise 5 local inquiries. I know that you care about it. I know Jess Phillips cares about it, but it has been watered down. That's the truth.
No, it's not the truth. The truth is that we are listening to victims and authorities around the country about the need to give them the right tools to tackle it, this very pernicious problem, in their own areas. We believe that decisions are best made by those with skin in the game in their own communities, people who live in those communities, who understand what is happening there, and that's why we've taken a different approach, which says we'll work with those communities to give them the tools that they need to tackle the problems that they find in front of them, not impose one system from Whitehall, which might give us a decent press release on the media, but doesn't actually tackle the problem. The days of those cheap solutions to hard problems are over. We're gonna actually grip them, and we're gonna fix them as a government.
Two things I want to pick up on that, and you can see the Times radio teams, I think their expressions on their face speaks volumes. The first thing she sneaks in there is that they now want to fund local authorities, including areas where there's been no suggestion of scandals. So now what you're going to see is these inquiries are launched in towns and cities where there's no suggestion of scandals. My bathroom's leaking, but I'll go and have a look in my kitchen. She sneaked that in there. The next thing, the lying. I'm trying not to swear, because now I've got a role in in somewhere else. And as I told my daughter looked at me, Daddy, you're going to be working with other people. You've got to behave better. Yes. So I won't swear, but I will raise this with you. She talked about decisions are best made at a local level with people who've got skin in the game. You heard her say that. I don't know what to say. Thank you. So thank you to everyone who's been giving me super chats, but thank you so much. That's just like, wow. Thank you. If you've got skin in the game, would you say Oldham has skin in the game? And the people of Oldham have skin in the game? And the decision made at a local level, Lisa Nandy, you lying piece of... The decision made at a local level, Lisa Nandy, was to force every councillor in the council chamber to write to the government, to write to Yvette Cooper, Jess Phillips, the government, and say, we don't want a non-statutory inquiry, we want a statutory inquiry. So those of us with skin in the game wrote to the government and said we want a statutory inquiry. Why have you denied us a statutory inquiry if our council, at our instructions, every councillor voted in support of a statutory inquiry at an extraordinary council meeting that we forced? So we have skin in the game. We have decided what's best for us at a local level. And you ignored us. This is not democracy. This is the equivalent of those sort of fake consultation exercises. We care about what you think. We care about what you say until you tell us something that we don't want to hear. So, one, she's a liar. And two, she sneaked in there how they're going to be supporting councils where there is no suggestion of scandals. And just as the £99 is amazing, the £2 for me is equally amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And there isn't, is there? No, they've always got away with it, Tracy. Sorry, Chloe. Brilliant that they're doing a petition. They've always got away with it. They've always got away with it because they've never been held to task. And this is Times Radio, national level, and I just pointed out the contradiction. If it's better for local people to decide who've got skin in the game, well, the local people did decide in Oldham, and our councillors wrote to the government on the back of every councillor voting with us. Here we go.
There's been upset this week about the situation with the grooming gangs inquiries, haven't there? Can you tell us what's happening? Because the government announced these 5 locally led inquiries back in January. Now this week we hear it's been shifted in favour of what's being described as a flexible approach that involves more bespoke work like victims, panels. I mean, there are real concerns that this is being watered down. I'm going to play you now a piece of soundbite that we've got from one of the fathers of a grooming victim. It's Marlon West. Just listen to what he has to say on this subject.
If Yvette Cooper was with me now, one, I'd tell her how disgusted I feel and how let down. You know, for example, Scarlett, my daughter, has been through hell and back, and so have all the other survivors. And to dismiss them and throw them under the bus the way they have, it's appalling. Where do we go from now?
What's your reaction? Because, you know, we can hear there the pain from victims' families, the victims themselves, what they have been through, and they feel let down by this decision.
So what we're doing is increasing the action on these vile crimes, child sexual exploitation and abuse. And understandably, victims and survivors want stronger action. That's what we're doing. There has been a huge amount of misinformation this week. Sadly, party political misinformation. It is just wrong. We're not watering anything down. We're actually increasing and strengthening the action that we are taking. So we're supporting local inquiries. We've announced the first one will be Oldham, but there will be other local inquiries. We're setting out the framework. We always said we would also do more to support victims and survivors, and we're actually announcing additional therapeutic support will be provided for victims and survivors of awful child abuse and exploitation. These are the most terrible crimes of all. We're talking about rape, we're talking about coercion, we're talking about exploitation. We have to have support for victims and survivors. We have to have local inquiries where they are needed, but we also, crucially, have to have police investigations. The most important thing we are doing is increasing police investigations into these appalling, appalling crimes so that we get the perpetrators behind bars. That is the justice that victims and survivors need to see, and that is also the way to keep communities safe.
Okay, quite a bit to unpack there. Thank you, Roy. Thank you so much for supporting me. Means a massive, massive difference to me. Thank you. Makes a massive difference. Makes a massive difference to me. I appreciate I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Thank you, Joseph. I get that. It's all right. They first, in that clip, had a guy called Marlon West on, who's the father of Scarlett. They actually live from Mosley, where I live. When Marlon and Scarlett started campaigning and raising their voices, I shared their work, I did all that. Never a bad word from me towards them. Next thing his post disappeared on X, I didn't think anything of it. And next thing I see is that I'd posted something on an Andy Burnham thread, challenging the inquiry and all of that. And Marlon West comes along and defends him. Defends the politicians, defends Jess Phillips and makes reference to her as Jess. I've spoken with Jess. And like a number of local survivors, they fall out with me. Some fall out with me because they can't manipulate me. Others fall out with me because they see me as too adversarial with the government. Well, I've been on this journey for 6 years and they've lied every bloody time. So Marlon has just discovered that he's been lied to and misled and manipulated. I have no issue with Marlon. Everyone's on their own journey. Yvette Cooper talks about increasing the action repeatedly. She doesn't really specify what the action is. She announces things like therapeutic services. What does that even mean? Who for? Funded by when? Is it central? Is it national? And she makes reference to the inquiry announced in Oldham. The Home Office are not responsible for the inquiry announced in Oldham. The inquiry in Oldham is independent of the Home Office, and the letter from Yvette Cooper and Jess Phillips has confirmed that. Because for the Oldham inquiry to go ahead with funding from the government, then the government wants to set the conditions. And those letters in the public domain demonstrate that the Oldham inquiry is independent of the Home Office. It might eventually be funded or supported by the Home Office, but it's independent of the Home Office. So she's not announced any inquiry in Oldham that's going ahead. The inquiry going ahead in Oldham is going ahead independently of the Home Office. She then talks about misinformation. Well, what is the misinformation? Is the misinformation that it's not been watered down? Well, you announced 5 local inquiries. You won't even say which towns or cities those 5 are taking place in. Who are the 5 areas, Home Secretary? It's been 3 months. Who are the 5 areas? I like Sonia Poulton. I think I've been on her show every now and then. I'll drop her a message, Angela. See how she's doing. I have time for Sonia. Yeah, indeed. Misinformation, my arse. She carries on. Let's listen to the next one.
Gangs, and I want to talk to you about public inquiries into grooming gangs. Yesterday, the Home Office Minister Jess Phillips announced that there would be a flexible approach to local grooming gang inquiries. Now, from what I understand, when I've been reading in terms of how this changes, if these are local-led inquiries, these inquiries don't have the power to compel witnesses or to compel evidence, which is what many people have been calling for. How is this not a poorer solution to what was expected before?
No, we're actually increasing the action that we are taking on these vile crimes. On child sexual exploitation, we're talking about things like rape and coercion, exploitation, and also more widely, child sexual abuse, some of the most vile crimes of all. We're actually increasing the action that we're taking, and that means including increasing the action around local inquiries and also
What's action mean?
around investigations, increase in police investigations as well. So we've set out support for Oldham to conduct a local inquiry. We're currently drawing up the framework for further local inquiries, exactly as we said a few months ago. And also we're currently waiting for the results of Baroness Louise Casey's review into looking at the prevalence of the grooming gang issues across the country, also looking at issues around ethnicity. And we're also collecting more data in a way that hasn't been collected before, increasing arrests into these awful, vile crimes as a result of measures that
we're collecting more data in a way that hasn't been collected before. I'm sorry, Home Secretary, but that data has been collected before. The ethnicity of offenders is a data set that has been collected before. The ethnicity of victims is a data set that has been collected before. You have the data. You're just too scared to publish it. The government has the data. Are you telling me that the grooming gangs, members of the grooming gangs in prison, we don't know what their ethnic backgrounds are or what their religion is from court transcripts or any number of documents that are compiled and filled in before they were sent to prison? Are you telling me we don't know the demographics of the victims? Indeed. She again talks about set up support for Oldham, or set out support for Oldham. Nuances in the language. We haven't commissioned the inquiry in Oldham. We're not responsible for the inquiry in Oldham. We've set out support for Oldham. See? Nuances in the language. Again, increased action. And you can even hear the BBC reporter, Naga, whatever her name is, I don't like her. You can even hear her scratching her head and saying, what is action? Increasing what action? And it's Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, robotic. Day after, she didn't want to go out and do this. You can see that. It's not gone well for him, has it? Well, Claire, you go and vote for whoever you want. It's absolutely fine. I just know in the local election, in the by-election in Tameside, there was no one else who was going to beat Labour in that Labour stronghold. Now, if you can come and show me these are the people, or this is the party that can win elsewhere, then come show it me. I'm happy to be educated. I'm happy to be educated. And I agree this has been going on for such a long time. I get that. I'm not disagreeing with that whatsoever. But the nature of the political cover-up has not been going up since the 40s or the 50s or the 60s. Of course, children have been abused. Sadly. For too long.
If we just come to the issue of local councils holding inquiries into grooming gangs, again on your brief, instead of inquiries, local authorities can now apply for money to undertake potentially audits about the case handling or hold victim panels or institute training. Even some Labour MPs are unimpressed with this. Why the change from inquiries, 5 inquiries we understood, to and prescribing that, to this, anyone can apply for funding to do whatever they want with?
There hasn't been a change. There's a lot of misinformation about this, and sadly a lot of party political misinformation about this. So let's be clear what we're doing. We're increasing the action on child sexual exploitation and child sexual abuse. These are some of the most vile crimes. In terms of the exploitation, you've got sort of grooming gangs, rape, coercion, exploitation,
Yes.
some horrendous crimes. Both of these were obviously covered as part of the National Statutory Inquiry, the 7-year inquiry that took place. But we're also supporting local inquiries. We've already said we'll support Oldham to have a local inquiry, and we're currently drawing up the framework for further local inquiries. We always said from the start we would also support areas that wanted to set up victim panels, but we're continuing to support the local inquiries too.
There hasn't been a change. There hasn't been a change. We will support Oldham. That's not true, again. Misinformation. And they're developing a framework. There hasn't been a change. They're developing a framework. The judge himself, Tom Crover, made reference to how he had been named in helping to devise that framework, and now he's not involved in it. But there's not been a change, people. We've all got it wrong. We all misunderstood. Even the judge that they were going to hire misunderstood. The entirety of the Home Affairs Select Committee misunderstood. Let's be clear. Equals, I am now lying. Yeah. And I think that's the sadness in this.
If we just come to the issue of local councils holding inquiries into grooming gangs again.
I was going to say, let's wrap up for the night, but no. There's 300 of you watching live. There's 15 of you, 100 of you at various points. So let's continue. Are we feeling it? And yes, this is the level of, I believe, meticulous dot joining evidence gathering that I hope to bring to Rupert Lowe's inquiry team. Let me get a Vimto. I'll play you that song. I remember one or two of you liked the song. I'll play you the song. How many new subscribers this evening? I'll tell you. I'll go on my emails and I'll be able to tell you. One. Four. One's just come in. 4 paid subscribers. Thank you. Thank you. Indeed. Hit the like, please. And I will play the song, get myself a drink, maybe consider buying me a coffee, subscribing if you can, at the very least like, and I'll be back in a minute. We have got something really important to go through, so don't go. There is something, 2 massive pieces of up-to-date information I want to go through with you.
Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we never want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party, got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we ever want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we ever want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing. If all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we ever want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Want somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy. Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we ever want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we ever want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we ever want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we ever want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise.
Thank you so much. You've already given me more than the vast majority of people give me in 3 years. So thank you. And no, it is as simple as that. Just sign up to Redwall and Rabble. It's not a difficult ask. Even if you sign up for free. We do need numbers. I think I'm just over 3,000 now in terms of total subscribers on Redwall and the Rabble. My aim is to get that. It needs to be at 10,000, I think. And I think, come on, you can see by now the value I bring to this. So please do sign up. It's 2 seconds of your time. And As for how much Vimto do I need, was a question about Vimto. I was having a Twix, one of the small Twix. My Kit Kats have disappeared. I think my daughter's on Lent, she claims, but her interpretation of Lent is interesting. She gets days off on Lent. So my Kit Kats have disappeared. How much Vimto I need? I have hot Vimto. Do you guys have my Vimto? I have it hot and also cold, but in the evenings when I'm with you, like I have hot Vimto. And no, I've not been to the Calder Valley. I'm afraid. Should I go? No, they always collected them. They always collected evidence. They're too scared to publish it. Too scared to publish it. Thank you, Carol. Carol's just signed up as a free member, so thank you very, very much. I was in Bridlington yesterday with my daughter. I went up to Bridlington for a night. I've got older sisters in Bridlington, so I went up, had a day on the... We stayed over a night and had a day on the seaside with her. So it was lovely. The weather was, yeah. And the penny pushers were right. There's a guy called John. John came to me in January. And he came to me via two hold that thought and ask me that again in a little while. He came to me via two Failsworth councillors. One is Mark Wilkinson, and the other one is Sandra Ball. John had gone to both of them, desperate, distraught, inner turmoil. I met him in the cafe in Morrison's in Failsworth, which is where I meet my friends Dean Ludford and David Gidman occasionally for the worst coffee in the world. And I don't. Don't be silly. My daughter. My daughter's of mixed heritage, so I'm kind of ambivalent to religious upbringing, but my daughter's mother's side of the family are Christian, so off she went to on that journey. So that's what that is. So I sat down and spoke with John. He was a retired detective chief inspector, worked in Oldham, and was involved in sending police officers to some of the children's homes where children were going missing. They made reference to his attempts to safeguard children in Oldham from the rape gangs as a pet project at the time. Off John goes, retires, and starts to work for an international child protection sort of organisation. They rescue children. You know, the children who get trafficked. Off he goes. So John goes and ends up in Bradford. And using his extensive police skills, counter surveillance, all of that, he sets up an operation outside the children's home. And he witnesses firsthand children disappearing at night, coming back the next day, not coming back at all. Sees a child in a car with a man with a head between his legs. Yeah, pet project, I think. I'm pretty sure that's the term he made reference to. He gets called into a meeting at Bradford Council. He's thinking, yes, they're going to help me out here, arrest these men, safeguard these children. At that meeting is a police officer of significant rank and the council staff, and the police officer warns him that if he continues, he'll be the one who's going to be arrested. He leaves the meeting distraught. He gets a phone call within minutes from a even senior ranking police officer from Bradford, who asks him what on earth he's doing, and goes on a rant about race relations and the far right getting hold of this. When John came to me with that story, and there's more to that story, I listened to him, and he pleaded for help. He'd gone elsewhere. He'd got nowhere. And in part, he'd been emboldened, because he's, lives somewhere in Oldham. He'd been emboldened by watching my content. He's probably watching now. And being very angry as a former police officer as to what took place to me. For no other reason than doing this, educating people, raising awareness, campaigning. And he's a devout Christian. Speaking of Lent, he's a devout Christian. I sensed that when I spoke to him. He was a deeply religious man. It wasn't his soul, it wasn't, there was disharmony inside of him. Many of you are aware, acutely aware of how I am blacklisted by the mainstream media, the legacy media. None of them will have me on because I take it to a place from where there's no coming back. Nonetheless, I have respect for many in the legacy media, including Charlie Peters. I think I've shared this with you before. Leave the lad alone, don't pick on him. He's doing the best he can. I phoned Charlie. Speak to him. Spoke to him this week. Phoned Charlie. Always takes my calls. I always take his calls. This isn't a competition. And I want that young man to go places. The country needs that young man to go places. And then I met with John again. This time John brought his wife. I met him in the Marks and Spencer's cafe in Rochdale because I wanted John to meet my friend Billy from Parents Against Grooming UK, PAG UK. I spoke to his wife as well. I phoned Charlie Peters and I connected them on the phone. They spoke to each other at length. Charlie Peters then arrived at John's house with a film crew. They recorded the story. They went away and did the due diligence. And the story broke a couple of days ago. I think it was on Thursday morning it broke. 6 a.m. I'll tell you when he messaged me. The young lad was excited. "6:38. He messaged me in the morning. I'd already watched it, but I was the coffee is horrible. I don't mind it. And Let me play it. Let me play it. Let me get my headphones right.
A career crime fighter threatened with arrest for tracking down child abusers. This is former Detective Chief Inspector John. A career crime fighter threatened with arrest for tracking down child abusers. This is former Detective Chief Inspector John Picos. In Oldham, he had tackled trafficking and exploitation, but working for a charity after leaving the force in 2008, he wanted to see if this problem was widespread.
I got a map of the Northwest and I closed my eyes and stuck a pin in, and it landed at an address in Bradford. We looked around that area and found a children's home. I went down to the location and identified a great property where we could observe the activities around that children's home. And we then ran a series of observations over several months.
John said he saw multiple incidents of children being taken from the home.
Sometimes these girls would just be gone for a few hours, but quite often they didn't come back that night or even the next morning. And we'd see police cars parked up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, clearly taking reports of missing children. And on one occasion, we followed a vehicle that had driven just about a mile down the road. We couldn't see the girl in the passenger seat. We thought, has she got out? There was nowhere to go, yet the girl wasn't in the car. I walked straight past. He was just sat in the car waiting. And as I'm walking back up, I saw a head pop up from the driver's side of the vehicle, a little head from his lap. Sorry. I felt really incensed because I'd missed something really obvious there. Excuse me, I'd missed it. This to me showed me that we had a real problem here.
So after 3 months of gathering this information, what did you try and do with it?
We wanted to try and move this forward. We had contacts in Bradford that led us to the bishop.
Sorry, just had to click that out. So his full story is available online, but you can see he's emotional. There's also a section where the church run a mile from him. Poor man's been carrying demons. Now, I'll leave it to you to decide whether that story would have made national news. If not for Charlie Peters and his dedication in getting this out. And if I've managed to then connect one person with another, that's all I've been doing for the last 6 years on this journey, really. Helping amplify campaign. I reached out to Robbie Moore, the MP for Keighley, some time ago. He never got back to me. And what I wanted to do was put him in touch with John as well. What can I say? There are many more Johns in the police force up and down the country, I know. I've spoken to others. Hopefully, Rupert's inquiry, once it gets up and running, Rupert Lowe's inquiry, once it gets up and running, once we get up and running, we'll be able to gather testimony. One more piece of work I want to do with you. I know it's approaching 11 o'clock. There's still many of you left here with me. Before we move on, I think I'm meant to be on a Sean Atwood podcast on Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. For those of you who listen to Sean, Maggie Oliver's meant to be on, and a couple of survivors. So Sean, I I have love for Sean, so when he got in touch with me yesterday, I responded. I think it was this morning before I responded, and what I said to Sean was, Sean, you probably need to go and check with Maggie Oliver whether she wants to be on the same platform as me. So let's see what Sean comes back with. And if they're okay with it, because Sean wants me on it, if they're okay with it, then I will do that on Wednesday evening. But what I wanted to share with you is some of you are unhappy with me, and I get that for different reasons. Some are coming to me with casework. I'm sorry, I can't take on casework. I don't have the means, the capacity, the power to take on casework. So that's why I don't take on casework. I can't do it. Secondly, some of you, after seeing the announcement from Rupert Lowe, have contacted me wanting to be part of the team. That's not my call. It's not, you know, I've been asked and I'll help, but it's Rupert and he's got a team. So your best bet is to get in touch with Rupert Lowe if you've got services to offer. And I can't recommend you, I'm afraid, because in the main I don't know you. So that's what I'm up to with that. And then some want to meet with me because they've got their own projects going on that they think can benefit this area of work. And I've tried to respond to some of you, but I'm also busy, and it's also the Easter holidays, so being unhappy with me on X isn't going to make any difference, I'm afraid. And I get you've got your own projects you'd like to get off the ground, but there's only me, and I'm committed to a certain course of action. And if you know me, if you followed my work for 6 years, you'll know I'm very focused. I'm very, very focused, and I won't deviate from that. Something might be shiny over there, or something might be interesting over there, but that's not me. I've started on a journey to get to an end, and I'll get to that end. But if you want to see me, and for one or two of you are getting very frustrated, I'm not sure what one or two of you want. Let's work together. What do you want me to work together on? How? Well, I will, and I think moving forward I'll try this. So straight after the Easter holidays, I will go and spend 4 hours a week at a set place somewhere in Oldham. It'll probably be my friend's cafe in Royton. I'll go and sit there 4 hours, 5 hours, and if you really want to sit down with me, meet with me, I'm not going to come and meet you in some pub on a Sunday night somewhere. I'll be at a set place at a set time once a week, and you can come and find me. Who has big platforms, Karen? It's all right though, isn't it? Yeah. Sean's been on his own journey with this Simon I've spoken to. He's been on his own journey, so yeah, I've shared a space with Sean many times. No, I wanted, because I didn't want, I think it should be up to her whether she'll share a platform with me, because she's avoided sharing a platform with me, I think. So let's see. Let's see what happens. Okay. The world's a funny place.
A career crime fighter threatened with arrest for
next.
tracking down child abusers. This is former Detective Chief Inspector John.
Why are you campaigning to have these transcripts released?
So I'm from the area where these crimes happened. It's something I've always cared about. And in January, when this all kicked off again, I was reading the transcripts that were released along with everybody else, and I realised that a lot of them were not made public. And I realised one of the reasons they weren't made public is because they're so expensive to obtain. There was a case in Hansard where one of the girls tried to obtain the transcripts and she was quoted like £7,000. And I realised, well, we can crowdfund the money for this, we can raise it so that people can access them, so the victims can access them. We raised £100,000, I think, in a week, an incredible amount of money. I was feeling very, very positive at the outset of the campaign. So we set out immediately to work, and I put countless hours into this since. We've mapped something like 450 different defendants across 90 trials. And we, unfortunately, have been blocked from a few cases, including the Old Bailey. But by far the most explosive, in my mind, the most egregious, was this one from Bradford. It was really ridiculous.
This is a trial from Keighley in 2016, and this judge, Mr. Justice Rose, has told you that it's not in the public interest for this information to be released. What can you tell us more about your application and the rejection?
Right, so we submitted an application saying essentially that we think this information needs to be public because it's never been public before, and that we would take there's considerations that need to be made. There's Section 1 of the Sexual Offences Act 1992, all about protecting victims.
Privacy and the
Right. And I've sought legal advice, so our application incorporated this. I've had lawyers look at it and draft it with me, and it was rejected on the grounds of public interest. Now, my opinion here is, we've acquired 11 sentencing remarks so far, and we have 20 awaiting delivery to us that we've had accepted. And of those 11 that we've acquired, I've given a bunch to MPs and investigative journalists and other people while we can't quite release them yet because the judges need to go through and redact and such. One of the people that acquired them was Katie Lamb, who used those transcripts to make that incredible speech that she gave last week in the House of Commons. And Jess Phillips's response was that this information, we don't need the national inquiry because this information is already public. However, some of the information that Katie raised in the Commons was from these transcripts. It's not been public before. So the idea that not getting them is not that it somehow harms the public interest when this information isn't available and has been raised in the Commons is, I think, ridiculous. It's ridiculous on its face.
Do you think there's a sense amongst politicians, and maybe some in the media as well, that some of these details are frankly just so harrowing, so grotesque, that it would be just easier not to know? They think, well, we know what the grooming gangs are now, we know it's appalling, we're hoping for an inquiry whether or not we get one, but actually just the details are just too difficult. Do you think that kind of deep human reason actually is underneath this denial of wanting to know?
I think I can't speak to the reasoning behind everybody in the party that's blocking this. And I know that behind closed doors there are many Labour MPs, some of them quite vocal, that have been in support of a national inquiry. I don't know why the decision makers haven't gone for it. I think it's a mistake on their part. I think they're hoping that it will go away. I don't think this is going away. And I think 4 years from now, when we have another election, this issue will be front and centre. And I think these politicians are going to have to stand up on the debate stage and they're going to have to defend their record in front of the public. Yeah. And they're going to have to, unfortunately, face the people and admit that they refused an investigation into what I think are some of the most horrific crimes that have ever been committed in the 2,000-year history of this nation.
A couple of things there. Firstly, what Open Justice is making reference to, Adam Wren, is that a judge has refused the transcripts of a horrific rape gang case. The convictions have happened, the transcripts are, justice is meant to be done in the public, remember, for us, yeah? Well, he's blocked the transcripts, claiming it's not in the public interest. Us knowing what happened to children, to the nation's children, apparently, according to a judge, is not in the public interest. Of course, it is in the public interest. Now, he's took that as far as he can go and he's getting more and more out. They've identified 450 defendants and there's 90 trials. And Adam and his team are busy doing that. I support Adam, by the way. A couple of reasons. One, he's doing good work. No reason. If he picked up his accent, it's Northern. He actually went to college in Oldham. Went to school in Chadderton. He's took an interest in this. Why do you think he's took an interest in this? Now, if I was Reform and I'd talked about a judicial review and I knew what a judicial review was, a judge saying, no, you can't have this, it's not in the public interest, is a decision that can be challenged by a judicial review and be successfully challenged by a judicial review. And if I was a Reform MP or one of their policy team, I would be jumping all over this. If I was a Conservative who genuinely believed in this, I would be challenging the Justice Secretary. Is it Shabana Mahmood? To make a statement. Prime Minister's questions, first one back. This would be what I would be bringing up. And I think that is 100% accurate. 100% accurate. Adam also clearly makes reference to how he's worked out what's going to happen. And this will be the defining agenda of the next general election, or one of the defining agendas of the next general election. And those of you who've worked with me in Oldham on how we took out Labour Party politicians on this issue, being the spearhead of a whole host of other issues, well, we're going to do exactly the same now in 4 years' time at a national level. Watch. And we've got people with us, haven't we? We've got a team. Yeah. And we're not going to go away. There's a story I will save for tomorrow. It's like the Arabian Nights, this, to prevent my killing in the morning. There's a story I will save for tomorrow. And that story is one of a man, Mumtaz Khan is called. He's been charged for child sex exploitation offences in Oldham. The police released a statement 2 days ago. And that is a story I will share with you tomorrow. It's a story that hasn't been told. And for those of you, when I put it up there, who started posting, I've deleted some of your comments, saying he abused this guy or he did something somewhere else. If you haven't learnt by now, you never will. You can't make unsolicited allegations against people, particularly when they've been charged for something else. You'll get me arrested. So I've deleted your comments and you need to start using this. You can be MI5, mate. There's nothing, see, you got to understand, there's nothing I share. The reason I've got this far is everything I put out in the open. Everything I put out in the open. Okay, if you have found value in my work, if you're one of the 1,769 people who've joined me this evening for a live transmission from the corner of my living room. If you found value, please like and subscribe to the channel, and if you can, join the 4 other people who have taken out a paid subscription to Redwall and the Rabble. I need your help. We're in this together. I have a role, you have a role, and that's to share and amplify the work, help recruit more people to understand what's really going on. And if you can afford the 75 pence a week, what's stopping you? Please take out a subscription. I'll see you tomorrow evening.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.